Hello, everybody. Over the years, I've had a number of youngsters come to me and say, what should I do if I want to be a sportscaster when I grow up? Well, you're going to meet a person today who has that ambition. And he's going to ask me some questions, and I'm going to try to answer some of the things that he would like to know, and also give you a chance to maybe tell your youngsters or grandchildren, whoever they are, what you may have to do if you want to be a sports announcer. As many of you know, my first sports broadcast came when I was 14 years old, back in my hometown of Shawnee, Oklahoma. 23,000 the population, 250-watt radio station. So as a result, I was able, as a really good break, to get started early, and it went from there. And now I've had, 71 years since my first sportscast back in Oklahoma. I would like to introduce you now to Bruce Kuntz, who is a sophomore right now at Cal State Long Beach. And Bruce, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much for having me on, Ross. I've been really looking forward to this, and I'm excited to be here.
Give us a little background on you.
I grew up in South Lake Tahoe, California, and as I moved up through high school, I was the play-by-play broadcaster at my high school for all of our sports broadcasts.
Good.
Yeah, and then now I got down here to Long Beach, and I got myself affiliated with the on-campus student-ran radio organization, and now I'm trying to get myself broadcasting baseball games for them.
Well, your dad, Greg, who's one of our regular members, and we love his contributions on a daily basis, he was a coach at one time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's coached for 40 years, mostly
Wow.
baseball and other sports as well. He originally coached at San Dimas High School and won the CIF championship with them down here in Southern California. And then he moved on to Cal Poly Pomona, where he coached on
Well,
the
Greg is the
women's.
one who sent us a post talking about your future. And he mentioned to us when he wrote us, he said, Bruce just got through doing a 17 inning game that Cal State Long Beach played with Washington. Wow. That
Yeah.
must be some experience. First thing I got a question for you is, did you have a color man to back you up?
I did have a color man. Yeah, that was my first time behind the mic for baseball in my life. And it was my first broadcast being able to do play-by-play down here for the student-ran organization, 22 West Media. And yeah, that was a pretty crazy introduction to the game.
What kind of information did you have as you went into that broadcast?
The nice thing is since it's a Division I sports program down here with the Dirtbags, they have a live stats website that has a ton of information at our disposal. They also give us a packet of information for both teams that has information about statistics and all kinds of other stuff that is very, very helpful to be able to reference throughout the broadcast.
Well, I was checking that game, and three times in that game, Washington had a one-run lead, and Long Beach State came back in the fourth inning, the 11th inning, and the 13th innings to tie the game at 3-3. It stayed that way, but the Washington team had to catch a plane, didn't they? And so
Yeah,
halted the game in the middle of the bottom of the 17th inning.
there was one out in the bottom of the 17th, and the Dirtbags actually had the winning run on base. And suddenly the umpires walked out in front of home plate and were pointing at their wrists and said, "We're done. Washington's got to go home." And yeah, it was an unceremonious end.
So it wasn't darkness that stopped the game. It was the airplane.
Nope. Entering the 17th inning, I got past a paper that was going around the press box that said that was the longest Long Beach baseball game since 1973. And I
Wow.
assume that game had to be called probably due to lighting. And I said that to my color man before we went back on the air. I said, now it's 2024. We've got lights. I assume we can play as long as we want." And then all of a sudden they called it like less than 10 minutes later.
Bruce, how long was the game?
It was 4 hours and 45 minutes.
Woo. Wow. Did you have a sore throat?
Oh, yeah. I didn't talk for the rest of that Sunday night.
Well, some of you know that one of my thrills in baseball was that I hold a major league record for the longest solo broadcast. Back in 1989, the Dodgers played in Montreal, and the game went 22 innings, 6 hours and 14 minutes. I was by myself because my partners, Vin Scully and Don Drysdale, were not there. So I got a record, and I would like to keep it for a while, but I know how you felt the other day when you went that far. Are you pretty definite now that you want to be a sportscaster?
Yeah, that's something that growing up, I always wanted to be a player, as many other kids do out there. And once I reached a point where I knew that wasn't going to be my life going forward, then I knew that I wanted to be in the game in some way. And broadcasting has always been something that is called to me.
Well, I want to give you a chance now to ask me any questions you might want to.
Yeah, I have a bunch of them written down. I think that this is an awesome opportunity for me to talk to somebody like you who's such a legend of the broadcasting game, and I'm very thankful for this. So
So
yeah, I
go
have
at it.
a lot of questions to go through. The first one I wanted to ask you, just starting from the top, kind of the most basic question that came to mind for me was, what do you think is the most important aspect of preparation for a baseball broadcast?
Wonderful question. Well, what I have done over the years is I've kept files on every team that I knew I was going to broadcast their games. And now I'm talking about major league level at that. But I was always the kind of guy who did a lot of reading, and I would come across articles on teams that maybe I wasn't going to see for 2 or 3 months. But I would cut those stories out of the newspaper, put them in the file, forget I'd ever done it. And then when it came time for the game, I'll reach in there and I had some information. That's one thing that helped me. Um, that's one thing. I think you have to just keep up with the game. You have to keep with the players and as much you can. I know it's tough to really know about collegiate players on the other team that you don't know about. But as you say, you might get some word from their sports information director that'll help you along the way. And of course, you know about your own team as you go about it.
That makes sense. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, preparation is definitely something that I think is important, and I try and focus on
Well,
for my
you're absolutely
broadcasts.
right. And my theory, Bruce, has always been don't try to get by without preparing, because when you do, you're going to get burned because there's going to be somebody out there in the audience who knows probably more than you do, and you can't fool them. So don't try to.
I like that. What about for someone like me, a young broadcaster? I'm sure that you've listened to many young broadcasters and given a lot of advice before, but what's some common mistakes that you hear in younger broadcasters that are getting ready to go into the business long term?
Well, unfortunately, I have not heard that many young broadcasters. Um, One thing you have to think about early is as you move up the line and you go from a smaller station to a larger station, maybe to television. And if you get on television, you have to remember, wait a minute, those folks out there can see what I'm talking about. Entirely different than if you're on radio. On radio, you're talking to people on the freeways and at home who can't see it. So you got to talk a little bit more. But you've got to keep that in mind at all times, especially if you get the television. Another thing I would ask you, are you taking any journalism classes at Long Beach State?
Yeah, I'm a journalism major, so
How
my
are
full
you?
class load is all
Good.
journalism. Yeah.
Well, I think that's very important. I was a radio journalism major at Oklahoma, and I, in all my career, have never had anybody write a word for me that I used. Same thing is, I've never used a teleprompter. So the fact that you have written your script really helps you along to where you kind of know where you are and don't always have to, look down and read the script.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Writing is definitely something I enjoy as well, alongside broadcasting. So, yeah, that's something that I've always thought I would love to try and incorporate into my future role, do a little bit of writing and then broadcasting as well. Try and be a jack of all trades with baseball journalism. That's my goal.
Well, I think what you're doing, and I hope you're doing this, I hope you're able to tape some of your broadcasts. I always took a little mini recorder into the booth with me, when I was with the Dodgers, and I would tape myself, and then I'd take it back to the hotel room if we were on the road or home, and listen to myself and say to myself, "Hey, you did this wrong. You should do this, do that." and it's very helpful. And I would recommend that you think about that in advance. Try to record yourself because, for one thing, as you gain experience, you're going to get better. And as you get better, you're more likely to want to make a move. If you're at a small radio station, and that's the first thing I missed telling you, and I meant to tell you, number one, people who get out of college who want to be sportscasters do not get jobs in Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago. They must go to a small station, probably in a small town, and get the experience. And then as you get better and as the years go by, you move up. And as you move up, your play-by-play is better. And therefore, update that with that tape machine to where you have a different audition tape. And be sure to when you get ready to make maybe a move or talk to another station about coming on, a couple of things to keep in mind. Make a couple tapes because you may wind up going to 5 radio stations and you're going to have 5 program directors who are going to want to take and listen to your tape. So don't take just one because you'll lose it. Follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that. And it's very important, I say, to do that and keep it updated as you move along. Let's see.
That's definitely something that I am conscious of. My first 2 broadcasts these last 2 weekends, thankfully, with all the technology now and everything, I'm able to get the full broadcast that goes out on the radio, and I have them on my phone. I've already listened back and tried to take some notes on things that I can improve on and all of that. And yeah, the more broadcasts that I do, I'll make sure to always get them, and then I can put together a demo reel that is as indicative of my broadcasting abilities as possible.
Right. Another thing that's important, as you move along the line and you're ready to go from one station to another station, do a little bit of homework and look into that market that you want to go to. First thing you look at is what stations in that market are broadcasting a lot of events, a lot of sports, a lot of games, because those are the people that you're more likely to be able to connect with. And they're saying, yeah, we liked your tape. We could use you because Charlie's leaving in 2 weeks to go somewhere else. And so I think that's important too. You don't want to start in a major market. Don't expect that. As I said to you, I got started when I was 14 years old because it was a small station, and I was able to work myself up from that. Let's see what else to tell you. Don't hassle over salary. All right. Don't go into a station with the idea of, I'm going to ask for this much money.
Yeah.
I think I'm worth it. I got to have it. If I'm going to move here and have an apartment, have my meals and everything else, I've got to have a certain amount of money. You don't want to do that. The important thing for you is get your foot in the door. Get on the staff. Work yourself up. As you work yourself up, the station manager should up your salary a little bit as you go along. And if you get to a point where you're really not able to be making enough money as you want, then it's about time, maybe if you feel like you're good enough, look on to the next market and move up. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Do it that way. I think we touched upon this a little bit, but it's the most important thing. Homework is absolutely necessary. Just be so prepared that when you get on the air, you are able to do it. Especially tough in baseball, because in baseball you got more time to kill. You don't have that time to kill during football or basketball because things are moving back and forth. But be prepared, and I think you're off to a good start as you think about that, and just make yourself as knowledgeable as you can. And it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to also practice at home your being able to articulate and be able to speak out and say, even do play-by-play in your bedroom, and maybe tape it and say, I like the way I did this, and maybe maybe I should do something differently. What else is on your question list?
I wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts on how the broadcasting game has changed over time and what you think is different about trying to get into play-by-play now versus when you got into the game, some things that I should be thinking about, some changes that I might have to make, and how the overall business has evolved over time.
Good question. I don't think there's been that much change because it all comes down to, and we're talking now baseball. And I'm
Yeah,
sure, have you done basketball and football anywhere?
basketball and football were the two that I announced the most in high school, and
Oh,
then
did
now
you?
baseball.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
baseball is
know
where I'm
what
going to
you have to
focus on
do
more.
to be
Yeah,
able to fill the airwaves by doing that. But that if you're gonna call a game, you're gonna call a game today like you'll call a game in 10 years, except you'll just have different players, different teams, different information to give them. But the main thing is you have to build your credibility. You've got to be in a position where people say, I really enjoy listening to Bruce because he knows what he's talking about and I can sense it. I know it.
that makes sense. Yeah, I think that that credibility is definitely something that I focus on at every broadcast. I try to leave a lasting impression. I want to have the audience leave the broadcast thinking I want to listen to Bruce broadcast again sometime, and I think that's a great way to try and grow my name and try and reach more people and build that network to eventually get more opportunities.
Well, Bruce, it sounds like you're on your way. You're making the right moves early. And I've enjoyed chatting with you and keep in touch with us and let us know how you getting along and give my best to your dad and thank him again
I
for
will, yeah.
putting me on. Really enjoyed being with you today.
Thank you very much for having me, Ross. I have really appreciated all of this advice, and I'll definitely keep it at the forefront of my mind as I move through this business.
Bruce Kuntz with us, and we hope you've enjoyed it.